In this lesson, we're going to jump into the world of Afro-Cuban music. Now, Afro-Cuban means everything from salsa to Latin jazz to son montuno, bolero and cha-cha-cha. There's a lot of different styles involved in Afro-Cuban music, but they all have a few things in common. And probably the most important thing they have in common is a rhythm called the clave. Now, the clave is, from Spanish, it translates directly as the key. So essentially, you can think of it as the rhythmic key or the rhythmic backbone to Afro-Cuban music. Now, the clave is generally considered to be derived from African rhythms that were brought over into the Caribbean and the Americas through slave trade, as is quite well known. Of course, in America, they developed and helped develop jazz, along with other influences. In the Caribbean, they helped develop what is now known as Afro-Cuban music, bringing those traditional African rhythms and combining with European instruments to create all the diverse musics that generally have that blanket term Afro-Cuban music around them. So let's get into the clave and where it comes from. One of the rhythms that some African tribal groups would play is called the bembe. Now, among other rhythms, this is probably one of the most important in describing where the clave comes from. Because in the bembe, a bell pattern is played by either a cowbell player or a hoe blade player, if a cowbell was not available. And it's a 6/8 pattern, and it sounds something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, those accents by themselves, if you take away the other two grace notes, forms what we would call the Afro-Cuban 6/8 clave. So if I just play the accents by themselves, we have the 6/8 clave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now that traditional 6/8 clave was taken and put into styles that use more of a 4-beat pulse rather than the 6/8. So it could be a time signature of 4/4 or 2/2, depending on how it's written. Let's look at the closest relative to the 6/8 clave, and that's the 3/2 rumba clave. Now, it'll sound similar to the rumba clave, the 6/8 clave, but of course, we are now in 4 and in a different subdivision. So you will hear the change. What I'll do is play 2 cycles of the standard 6/8 clave and then 2 cycles of the rumba clave. And I'll keep the subdivision pulse on the rim of my snare here. And I will play it on the jam block here so we can get a more authentic clave sound. Because of course the clave is normally played on a pair of sticks called claves. And these jam blocks get pretty close to that traditional sound. So again, 2 cycles of the Afro-Cuban 6/8 clave, 2 cycles of 3/2 rumba clave, which I will explain in a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's try it again just with 1 cycle of each clave so you can really hear how they relate to each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now let's just focus on the rumba clave. There are 2 types of rumba clave, a 3/2 and a 2/3. Now, those numbers may seem confusing, but they simply just refer to the number of beats or the number of hits that you'll find in each bar. So the 3-2 Rumba Clave has 3 hits in the first bar and 2 hits in the second. It's as simple as that. We switch it around to the 2-3 and we're looking at 2 hits in the first bar followed by 3 hits in the second bar. And basically it's the same pattern, just reversed. We're just swapping the bars over. So let me now play the 3-2 Rumba Clave just with the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, now I'll play the 2-3 clave, Rumba Clave, which should sound very similar once I get started, because I'm just starting the rhythm in a different place. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so it does have a different feel if you're counting the bars. If you're not counting the bars, and if you just start listening to the clave in the middle, they'll probably sound exactly the same, and that's because they are. It's exactly the same rhythm, just switching the bars around to give it a different feel. Now, the next type of clave is called the Sun Clover. Now, the Sun Clover is used in a style of music called son, and it has expanded into being used in salsa and a style called son montuno, which is basically the ancestor of modern salsa. And as opposed to the Rumba Clave, which is more of a street style used in street dances, and a modern style called timba. So it's a bit more funky than the Sun Clover, which is a bit more straight ahead and more aligned with Cuban classical music. So let me play the Sun Clover for you. Again, I will play the 3-2 and then the 2-3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now the 2-3 Sun Clover. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on the basics of Afro-Cuban music and the clave. I'll see you on the next one.